and because I've been following these prescriptions, I would say to myself, well, quieten your mind, silence it, all that type of thing. But somewhere in the background, when I hit a bad shot, there was sort of right? So now I want to address that specifically, why we have these things. Because you said to me something about, because I asked you, you know, do you consider yourself to be forgetful? And what did you say to me?
Oh, right. Yeah, for about as long as I can remember. That was a...
I don't remember being forgetful.
It's a big factor in my life. That's either losing like my keys or something, or I don't know, forgetting an errand I was supposed to do that day.
Now I'm going to ask you a question on that, and which is that how many times during the course of a year do you come to, and I'm not alcohol aside, do you come to the wrong door? In other words, you just forget where you live.
Nothing so dramatic as that.
Right, and so for none of us, so people will tell me they got bad memory, and I say, oh, I can only remember something. So I say to them, so I guess that maybe like 5 times a year you just arrive at the wrong door, right? You arrive at number 21 instead of number, and everybody does what you did. They laugh, and so there's an expectation there. Nobody, I mean, if we were literally arriving at the wrong house, alcohol aside,
right.
We'd probably be very, very concerned about ourselves. But we hold ourselves to a far lower standard when it comes to recalling certain material, because, so the first thing I want to say is that I believe that you've got great recall, right? But I also believe that somewhere in there's a strong idea, because you say, you know, as long as I can remember, it's been a problem, it's been a difficulty. And what does that indicate?
Well, and a lot of times these are messages that we've been given
right.
by other people.
That's right.
Who tell us, well, you can't remember this, and,
right.
and your memory's not very good, and
right.
so forth. And we internalize those messages, and they become self-fulfilling.
Absolutely.
We take them down into our subconscious, which holds all those beliefs, and they are self-fulfilling.
And that's the hypnosis.
Right.
You see, so I say that all the most damaging hypnosis in the world is done by amateur hypnotists. Who are the amateurs?
Yeah.
And again, I know that they often have great intentions. Parents, teachers, sports coaches, they take a little child, and you know, we're going to talk about the critical faculty in a minute, but that little child is in a state of hypnosis. I'm going to describe why. And that little kid can be doing great, slugging away at baseball, and they said, and some coach say, you're doing great, but you're not as good as you think. You have to work harder, right? And so they'll internalise that idea, oh, if I'm going to be good, I have to work hard, right? What does work hard mean to them? Maybe it means they have to make themselves miserable. Whatever those words mean to them, that's what's just going to come out. And that gets internalised. And or a teacher you'll go through things 3 or 4 times, and somebody will say in class, oh, you can't remember that? That's easy. They're giving you a hypnotic suggestion. You can't remember that, right? That's easy. So now the subconscious says, oh, I can't remember easy stuff. Okay,
right.
I'll make that the reality. And as not illogical as that sounds, these ideas become internalised and they limit our capacity.
Right, and the fact is, I don't know if you actually said this. You mentioned that some of the best amateur hypnotists are your parents, but it's also authority figures.
Right.
Because when you're dealing with an authority figure, you go into a hypnotic state.
Absolutely.
And so any messages they send, good or bad, they get right down in there, and then it gets compounded by other people giving you the similar messages.
Right.
And it, becomes self-fulfilling.
So that everybody knows, because we tend to talk a shorthand here about what a hypnotic state is and isn't. Let's just describe it in our terms, so anybody watching out there can understand, and Kevin can understand.
That'd be great.
Hypnosis, the best definition that I know of hypnosis is actually one given by the Department of Labour, which actually comes directly from my teacher's teacher, a man called Dave Ellman, and it says hypnosis is the bypass of the critical faculty of the conscious mind and the admission of selective thinking. And for anybody that watches this show more than once, they're going to hear me say that many times. So let's just talk about what that means, because that's a lot of words, but it's very simple actually. In the hypnotic model, there are 2 parts of the mind, the conscious and the subconscious. And as I said, the conscious mind is what we think of as our mind. It's what plans, what we think of as brings us here, and whether I'm going to wear a blue sweater or a red one. That conscious mind. And the psychologists tell us that holds about 40 pieces of information a second. The subconscious mind operates through feelings, emotions and sensations, and the same psychologists tell us that holds about 4 million in that same time period. It controls the autonomic functions of our body, it records every impression that comes in. And between them there's something called the critical faculty. That's like a gateway. It's in the conscious mind, but it sits in the subconscious mind. And for people viewing this, what I'm describing is a model of the mind. This is a model how we understand it. Yeah. People can justifiably ask the question, is that the truth? Well, nobody knows the real truth of how the mind operates. But we look at the model to see if it gives us predictability and understanding, and it does. And so in this model, this critical faculty determines whether information is going to come from the outside world and go into the subconscious mind. And it does it on one basis and one basis only. Does it agree with what's already in there? And so if I say to Kevin, and I tap, hey Kevin, look at this nice chair, instantly he sees he has a slight frown on his face. The subconscious mind will reject that and say, well, that's not a chair, that's a table, right? And he'll just instantly, and you found it would come up instantly, right? What's he talking about? That's not a chair. Right. Maybe he said the wrong thing, right? But if I say, look at this table, and I tap the chair that I'm sitting on, it'll do the same thing. But if I say, look at this table, his critical faculty will come up and admit the selective thinking, which is that this is a table. Now, Bill's a scientist, and he'll tell us that even though we call this a table, it's just, what, a collection of vibration of atoms coming together. Is this a table? It's what we call a table. But to the subconscious mind, it's accepted. It comes up. Now, if you're given that critical faculty, does not develop until a young person is about 5 or 6 years old. It develops over time. Up until that point, any dynamic, energy-filled suggestion given to a young person has a high chance of being accepted, and the rule is what's ever in first. So if very, very early on a child is given messages, deliberately or not, of whatever it is, that's what they'll take to be their personal definition of the way they are. Let me give a simple example so that you understand. And everybody out there understands. Because this is hypnosis, folks. This is what it really is, and this is what we work with and against. You take a 2-year-old, a little girl, and she's holding a little glass of milk, and she just drops it because it's too heavy, and she spills it, and she starts to get upset. And her mother, to comfort her, says, oh, don't worry, all of the women in our family are klutzes, but we're all lovable. So she gets this idea that to be lovable, she has to be a klutz.
Because they're now linked, because they were said at the same time.
Right, oh, if I'm going to feel good, and I'm going to feel lovable, and everybody's going to approve of me, I better be a klutz. And so she's the little girl that becomes a klutz. And, oh, everybody in the family is a klutz, if they're girls, right? Which is fine, unless she wants to be a gymnast.
Right.
Or she decides that she wants to be a brain surgeon, which is not such a useful attribute. But she says, if I don't be a klutz, then I'm not lovable. If I don't be a klutz, I'm not a woman that belongs in this family, so I better be a klutz. Her subconscious is saying that, because it forms part of her personal definitions. This is not a conscious mind thing. She doesn't decide later on, that when she's 15, 20, 30, that she wants that. It's just what's gone in. It's the program that's gone in. That's the hypnosis.
Right.
And so she's hypnotized into believing, and so if she wants to change that, that's what we have to change. So somewhere, the idea is there that, oh, I don't remember things very well, but you remember things all the time. You drive a car.
Right.
You don't put your pants on over your head, and you just accept these things. You don't miss your mouth when you eat, and right.
Sure.
So
and one thing I just wanted to point out too is because it actually there's a funny process called compounding. And so what happens is, if you have this initial message, like in your case, Kevin, well, I can't remember things so well. If then later on, when this critical faculty is formed, you've got that idea down in your subconscious. If somebody says to you, yeah, you can't remember things so well, the critical faculty says, yeah, that matches what I got. And it goes down and it reinforces that idea that you already have.
Yeah.
And so every message that says you can't remember as well keeps compounding that and make that belief stronger and stronger. If, on the other hand, you get a message, you have a pretty good recall, critical faculty says, no, I don't have good recall, and it just kicks that message out. And so therefore it will not go in and can't change the base message down into subconscious.
That's exactly
So the
correct.
whole idea of hypnosis is to bypass that critical faculty, that barrier, and go down into the subconscious and change those incorrect messages.
Right, to something that serves you and
Right.
is there.
Right, so that would be the same way as calling a table a chair or vice versa. Like,
Right.
You just accept what's you're used to.
Correct,
Right.
Okay.
because if to the subconscious mind it feels comfortable, and if it's comfortable it's safe, and its primary job is to keep you safe, because it's the way that you've thought about yourself, it forms your personal definition. If by contrast you have the opposite belief that you have superb recall and far better memory than the average person, it would make that your reality. The subconscious mind creates your perceptive reality, and so in hypnosis, when that perception is non-helpful, non-productive, not what you want, and I ask you, do you want to change that, and you say, yes I do, then I have your permission to bypass the critical faculty to change that programming. So that's part of what we do. So where do those things come from, where I'm saying to myself, oh man, well, you played that shot badly, or what's wrong with me, I can't get this backed in properly, or I can't remember that. Wherever it came from, I don't care. I just want to get rid of it. Where did it come from? Maybe it came from a parent, maybe it came from a teacher, maybe it came from a TV. It doesn't matter. It got in there somewhere, and it's now causing a problem. And the use of hypnosis, the first part of what we do, is to clean the slate, get that stuff out, right? And sometimes that stuff is really, really embedded in there, and we don't even know when it's coming. Sometimes things, you know, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you can make a joke to a very small child, which to an adult or an old person is funny, and they'll take it at face value, and they'll literally start to cry, because you'll make a joke, and to them it'll be very upsetting. So our perceptions of what's true as an adult is completely different from our perceptions as a child. But in that state, that childlike state, when we're very young, there is no critical faculty. It goes right
Straight in.
It's going in, it's going in, it's going in. And so therefore, it's extremely important for parents to give the appropriate messages. And I don't mean by giving this, you know, this goes beyond just positive messages. We don't delude our children. I mean, one of the things that I'm keen on teaching our children is that failure is valuable. As a scientist, you know that when you set up an experiment, if you're going to fail, you want to fail as fast as possible.
Right.
Because that's telling you something. The worst thing is to continue something and spend time, energy, and money taking a very long time to fail. And so it's not just a question of failing or succeeding. It's a question of knowing that failure is a result. It's an observable result, and it has value. But it's the whole idea that we have a capacity to learn, to understand, to recall as appropriate, and that we can strengthen that, and it's something that we can be in control of. So the first step with Kevin will be to clear away any of those old ideas.
Right.
And this goes beyond just positive mental attitude. It goes beyond just a technique here or a visualization there, because we can give you all of those techniques, but your subconscious mind won't accept them if somewhere there's the idea, I'm just no good, I just can't do it, you know, that's not possible for me. Yeah. And you don't even know why you got that idea. It's somewhere there.
So basically what you're doing is changing the basic programming that's down in there that's giving you the incorrect messages.
Right.
And after that, you know, we can give you the tools to be able to absorb it easier.
Right.
And since you're not fighting those negative messages anymore, they will work. If you just try to use the tools without getting rid of the negative messages, they just won't work as optimally as they should.
Right. And this is why people who very often try things like positive mental attitude, I just know I can learn, I know I'm the best, I know I'm great, and their subconscious mind says, I don't like that, right? Not going to have it. Nothing happens. Yet, somebody else who already has that in their subconscious mind will say those same things, and the subconscious mind says, yeah, that's true, and I'll accept it. Yeah. Right? And so, and again, that was a puzzle to me before I understood about hypnosis for decades. You know, why does this work really well with these people, but not with these people? Why does this sometimes work with me, but this doesn't work? Why?
Right.
And it's because of that, as you put it very accurately, that programming inside that's there.
And I recently had a potential client talk to me about an issue, and they couldn't understand why they were trying to give their partner positive messages for years. and the behaviors didn't change, and it was a mystery, and the person had a negative self-image.
Right.
And despite all these positive messages, and she said, I don't understand why it won't go through,
Right.
that he can't get through, that he is a good person and has all these good qualities. And I explained the model to her. And she said, that's the first time anybody's ever truly explained it. She says, now I know why.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the value of the model. It gives us understanding, it gives us predictability, and it and one of my jokes is, I sometimes say to people, if you ever know, and let me take, depression, clinical depression, it's a serious thing, and what I'm about to say doesn't mock that, but if you ever want to cheer up a depressed person, you just say to them, yeah, you're right, you are a skunk, you do deserve all these terrible things, and they'll start to laugh. They'll go, he gets it, right, he understands, right? And if you say the opposite, it was like, life is really good, things are wonderful, like, that guy's got he doesn't know what it's like from where I'm sitting, because it doesn't match with what's already in there.
Right.
And so, but the other message, life is terrible and life is miserable and bad things will happen. They go, oh yeah, that's it, he gets it, and they'll cheer up straight away.
Right.
Because it agrees with what's already in there, right?
Yeah.
And so, the first part is that hypnosis is not mind control, not at all. I couldn't work with Kevin unless he wanted to change. And for example, this happens sometimes, when I work with children, mum or dad will say, well, here's little Johnny, change him.
Fix him.
Fix him.
Right.
And little Johnny says, I don't need fixing, there's nothing wrong with me. He has no interest, right?
Right.
And so he won't be open to anything that I do. It's not a problem, right?
Right.
It's mum's problem or dad's problem, right? But if little Johnny comes along and says, what do you like to do, Johnny? I like to play football. You want to throw that ball better? Then he's interested, right? Then he wants to know, right?
Sure.
Then it makes sense. Oh, and by the way, the same thing's going to help you study better if you want to use it for that.
Right.
Then it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? And that's how it's there. So as an adult, of course, Kevin comes along and says, well, this is going to be helpful in my life, and this is something that I want to use. And so I have his permission to work with him. But without that permission, I can't be effective, because hypnosis is not mind control.
Right.
It's
Right.
a permissive state.
Right.
And
And
very
the
important to
hypnotist
know.
does not control the person.
Absolutely
It's
not.
one of the biggest myths.
Right.
You are always in control
Right.
when you're in a hypnotic state and otherwise.
Right.
So
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Right.
Yeah. And one of the other myths is the fact that you could, reveal secrets.
He's not going to tell me things about his work that he doesn't,
Right.
Is one. If I'm going to say, what's the code? And I don't know if he even knows any codes, but what's the
Right.
code? He's not going to say, oh, it's all going to come out. No.
Right.
Right.
Because it's not relevant. He
Right.
just-
And
at all.
anything that you would not tell me in a normal waking state, you would not tell me in a hypnotic state.
Right.
Okay.
And if I started asking you, personal information that you wouldn't normally reveal, you're really or give you suggestions that would be against your moral codes or anything like that, you'd either just reject any suggestions, or you would come out of the hypnotic state.
Yeah.
And you say, nope, I don't like that.
No, not
I don't
doing
like
it.
what's going on here. So that's the beauty, is that you really are always in control. The hypnotist isn't controlling you at all.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. So, and that's why, and that's one of the reasons why I asked Kevin right at the beginning, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve? Because everything that we do with a client is focused around what they want, and only what they want.
Right. Right.
So,
Do you want to describe what is going to be the process with Kevin? What are we going to
so
work with?
basically, it's probably going to consist of, I think, based upon what you said, just two sessions initially, and that the first session is going to be doing some of that clearing work, and then installing self-hypnosis. Second session is going to be how to use those specific techniques
Right.
that we're talking about. And what I'd like to do is later on, I know you're going to be on deployment probably in a couple of weeks, right?
That's right.
Right. And so when Kevin returns, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what happened, how it changed, what changed. We want to know the truth. The idea here isn't for him to come and just paint a whole, false picture. It's what actually happened. We want to know. That's how we learn,
Right.
And that's how we help people.
Right.
By taking their real life, real world situation and giving them tools that can help, using the power of the subconscious mind. And that wonderful, wonderful thing that is in all our possessions and which we barely understand and barely use most of the time. And that's our goal.
Yep. Sounds good.
So, would you?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one of the things that we do is in the process of hypnosis, we bring people into hypnosis by something called an induction. And everybody's capable of entering hypnosis, but everybody does it a little bit differently. And so there are different ways of bringing people into hypnosis called inductions, and we kind of match them and tailor them for you. Some hypnosis practitioners literally only ever used in the whole of their careers a single induction, which is a bit like if you're a car mechanic only using one screwdriver, which is kind of strange really.
Yeah.
It can work, but it's not necessarily the most efficient way.
Sure.
So what we do is we match it to you, and in fact we don't even say, oh well, this is the induction for Kevin. We literally vary it. And so a couple of things that we sometimes do is we do what's called a kind of an evaluation. We sometimes call these tests, and they're not pass or fail tests. It's just for us to see, is this, what this person, what they're like. Now we don't, we don't normally do this in television on the air. But if you want to, and again, because it's permissive, I ask is on Kevin's permission, would you like to just do a couple of these tests on the air?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. So very good. So do you want to do them, Bill, or would you like me to do them? And I'm totally okay.
I don't mind doing one, and you want to do another?
Yeah. Do you want to?
So I'll do the.
Yeah. So I'll do the hands rising and falling test. We'll do that first.
Okay.
So what I'm going to ask Kevin to do, and for those of you that have watched a stage hypnosis show, you might have seen something like this. This is not stage hypnosis, but some of these techniques are akin to it. These are just a calibration technique. So I want you just to hold one hand like this, Kevin, and one hand like that. That's right. And now I want you to close your eyes. And this is an exercise in imagination. I want you to imagine, and I'm going to touch your hands. Is that okay?
That's fine.
I always ask people permission to touch them. And if I touch this hand, I want you to imagine that on it there's a bucket. And in that bucket is wet sand. And because there's wet sand in it, it's very heavy. You can already feel it there, weighing that hand down. Now attached to this hand, round the wrist, is a ribbon. And what that means is attached to that ribbon is a helium balloon. And that helium balloon is pulling this wrist and this hand up. And at the same time, pushing this hand down, because this hand has that heavy bucket of sand. Now what I want you to do, Kevin, is just really imagine that and let your hands do and arms do whatever they choose to do. You don't have to make them do anything, and I don't want you to stop them doing anything either. Just let it happen. And now as this hand becomes heavier and heavier and heavier, because that bucket's heavy, I put more sand in it, wet sand, and just feel it going down, 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 and feel the other hand coming up, up, up. And just open your eyes, look at your hands, and just let them relax. That's it. Very good. And I'm going to talk about what these tests mean a little bit. And Bill, you want to do the...
Sure. Okay, so this one is pretty easy too. And I'll demonstrate it, and then I want you to do it. So you bring your hands out in front of you, and interlace your fingers and cross your thumbs. And let me just show you how to do it first, right?
Okay.
And when I tell you, what I want you to do is I'm going to have you shoot these two fingers out, and then I want you to just look at the pads of both fingers, right? And I want you to just want the fingers to come together. Don't consciously pull them together.
Okay.
Don't try to keep them apart. Just want them to come together. Okay?
Okay.
So wait, hold on one second. Go back. Okay. Ready? Shoot them out. Now just want them to come together.
Let's see what happens.
Feel them wanting to come together. Let them do if they want to. Good. Just
Try not to laugh at this. This is weird.
feel, just want them. Yeah, feel it inside. You want them to come together. You want them to come together. Beautiful. Very good. You can stop there.
Very
Thanks.
good, thank you.
Yep.
And we're almost drawing to the end of our show
Yes,
now.
it looks like it.
And so I'm going to, the next time that we come on the air, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we use those tests and what they meant and what they told us. And again, these are just technical matters for us. There's not, and for anybody that's clients of ours, these aren't pass or fail tests. You can't fail.
Right, exactly.
It just tells us something. It tells us what we're to do. And so that's it. So we're going to work with Kevin. We're going to report back the results.
Mm-hmm.
And on the next show, we're going to talk about a different hypnotic topic. We'll pick this up, learning and exams and study and everything, the next time Kevin comes back and reports what he's found. And so that's it for today's show. So I want to thank Kevin for coming along.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to thank Bill for too. And we look forward to seeing everybody that's watching again on the next show of Hypnosis Helps. Thanks.
Thank you.